I'll share the screen again. Okay.
Mhm.
So just for the sake of recording, because I started a little bit later, the topic for today's Torah study is jealousy. And we're reading from Torah portion Naso, which is the second portion in the fourth book of Bamidbar. We already started discussing the ways that women had to be tested if they were suspected in cheating, and the test was bitter water that they would have to drink, of which we will read later. And that woman would be called, and the test would be called SOTA, SOTAH. Okay, where were we?
So my question is that maybe this is later on, but does it discuss as to if she does supposedly not feel well from drinking this bitter water, and they really feel that she has potentially committed adultery, what happens to her? Is she just banned from the community, or forced
Divorce. Yeah. So the husband may have the decision that he's not obligated to be with her anymore. That's right. If she survives the test.
Mhm.
But isn't there also the question of if she's pregnant, whose child is this? If she strays.
It's not in this particular part of the portion where it doesn't discuss the woman who is pregnant in this particular one.
Okay.
And back then they didn't have the DNA test, so
I know.
Really?
I wanted to tell you, as you know, I was married before and I have a get.
Mhm.
Now, when I went for the get, and it was granted, the rabbi said that my then ex-husband could remarry immediately, but I had to wait 3 months in case I was pregnant, so that there would be no question as to who the father of the child would be. Now, in my case, there would have been no question because we'd not been together for a while, but that's why I'm wondering about the father of the child, if she was pregnant.
Mm. I will look into that, but again, it's not in this particular part.
Yeah.
So again, we're back to the Sephoran interpretation that she deviates from path of chastity, and Ilan is right. That means that she cheated. Doesn't mean that she's necessarily, as Ellen said, prostitute, but just is suspected of cheating on her husband. And more from Sephoran here. Bob, you want to still read this paragraph?
Okay. Sforno, she has profaned what is holy to God, that which he loves, marital union, by embracing and kissing someone other than her husband.
So I'm just curious, what do you think? And I know you all have or had wonderful marriages right now. Those of you who are whose husbands are, thank God, alive. And I know some of you lost a husband, and it's very painful. So what do you think about even accusing a woman, even if she did commit adultery? But nevertheless is still devoted to her husband. I'm just curious. Well, what's your take on it?
Wonder what kind of relationship the marriage, what relationship they have with each other, that
Mhm.
trust issue,
Mm-hmm.
something's
Mhm.
not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
It's
even
okay
thinking
somebody
about
to do
going
that.
looking for other, you're not getting what you need at home then. I'm not talking sexual.
It's you're so right.
I'm talking
You're
just,
so right.
the
Sometimes
conversation,
yes.
the closeness you have with a person.
Right.
Doesn't have to be a sexual thing. So who knows?
Yes. And so that she may have been caught and, with someone who spends time because, like in our days, it could possibly be back then, right? And women back then probably were getting even less attention
Mhm.
than these days. So
Yeah.
It
yeah.
could be a friendship.
could be a
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back then probably if woman is seen with any other man other than her husband, that already would
Mhm.
arise suspicion.
Mhm.
Yeah. What is it with the ultra Orthodox? Isn't that similar now or not?
I believe so. I believe so. I mean, if you watch this, all right, they
Yeah.
always have to when they talk to a woman in the house alone, they have to leave the door open.
You know, I
Did you
have
watch
to
this show?
interject. I love that show,
Yeah.
but my daughter and her husband, as everybody knows,
Uh-huh.
are Orthodox
Right.
or from. I cannot hug my son-in-law. My daughter doesn't hug her father-in-law. It's just not. I don't touch him. He doesn't touch other women. Not touch, hug, embrace anything except his
Right.
mother.
Well, they can't even, man can shake a woman's hand, any woman's hand, right? They-
Not the ultra orthodox. They can't touch another woman.
yes,
No.
they can't even touch. Do you know that? And I just on first year and I think second year in the States, I worked for the various caterings, and sometimes I would do work with for Orthodox Jews, and I know that they wouldn't even, if they have lunch or share a meal with another couple or whatever, and there's a woman at the table, they would not touch the salt shaker because they wouldn't pass it, because in case the woman is in her period,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't become they don't become unclean by touching the
Right.
salt shaker that the woman, so they will have to have a separate salt shakers. And there were quite a few things that I learned just by observing things and not learning the laws.
So I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure.
So back in days of, Torah written and all that, were marriages arranged? Or were people, because I get the feeling not,
Well,
that they were able to pick their partner. So that's why I'm kind of wondering.
both. I think both,
It was
because
both.
well, as we read about our forefathers and foremothers,
Right.
some of them were arranged. I think not Sarah and Abraham, but Rebecca arranged the marriage, right? And then Isaac was sent to find, hey, Dan, to send his wife. So I think it was mixed. There is no specification, at least in the Torah, that the marriages have to be arranged.
Okay. Because that, of course, then you get into the whole relationship situation
Right.
where clearly
When
it's
there's no love.
it's not a
Yeah.
good match,
True.
and someone is not getting not having a good relationship with their
Right.
arranged partner.
True.
I think the marriage were arranged in all cases because the women had to bring the father of the woman had to pay the groom.
Dowry.
Dowry, yeah.
Dowry.
So
True. And also,
it was a business transaction. They were giving they were buying.
mhm.
No, they were buying a wife. The groom had to. There was a money exchange. I'm not sure. I'm confused now. Was it the husband paid? No. I think the
No,
father.
the bride,
It was
the
the
wife's
wife's
family.
the wife's
family.
family had to,
Right.
yeah, and
Because your
My
uncle had it
used
all
to
wrong.
tease him.
right.
Yeah, he had
Plus,
it wrong.
plus,
Yeah.
don't forget that we do have the laws in terms of inheritance of the land, right? So women, in general, wouldn't inherit the land.
Right.
There was only one
Yeah, one
instance,
case,
or
right,
one case
right.
when the sisters got their
Right.
father's land, but in general, a woman wouldn't inherit the land. And so, of course, she had to be married to someone who would be able to provide. So most likely, majority of the marriages were arranged and
Right.
thank you. And therefore, Judy, you're absolutely correct. And, of course, it would impact the relationship if you were marrying someone who you don't love. But having said that, we know plenty of marriages that started with love, affair, and then it didn't work out. So not
there
necessarily,
such-
or the opposite.
Right.
So there was a such thing, there was divorce though,
Yes.
but was that only under certain circumstances, like if there was infidelity or something like that?
But, by the way, it doesn't say specifically girushin, like there's no, well, there is a word, but it's more vague. Like you can let there are phrases in the Torah, like you can let the woman go, or the woman can find another husband, but there are no particular laws, I think, in the Torah about the girushin.
And polygamy was.
Yeah,
that was
polygamy. Well,
Mm.
polygamy
Well,
existed till about
King Solomon had how many wives?
yeah, 100
Yes.
as
Yeah, right, yeah.
supposedly. Polygamy existed and was officially, accepted in Judaism until about 12th or 13th century. I think it was Rabbi Gershom who put a stop to that. But did we talk about it? So some of my Israeli friends know their friends whose families are from Yemen, for example. And when they came in 50s, some families came, some guys came with like 2-3 wives. But of course, officially it would be only one, but they would live in a household with a couple of women even in Israel. And these guys would say, we remember growing up, like, it's like they were sisters, supposedly. So it was
Like,
still
Leah and Rachel.
like Leah and Rachel, exactly. So it was still practiced, but not, of course, officially accepted and not legal in Israel. But there were families like that, and not even talking about the Muslim community. If you go to Brooklyn, you can see sometimes on Ocean Parkway a guy walking, and then a couple women going behind him.
You're talking about Islam.
Right now, yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Islam,
Hmm.
yeah. But in Judaism, like I said, in Judaism, it was, I think, around 13th century that the polygamy was already abandoned.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
That's still a long time.
it's a long time,
Yeah.
right? But from what we know, Jewish men, except for, of course, King Solomon, who can afford that, Jewish men in general don't are not famous for having multiple wives.
Well,
that could lead to
one
whole
Jewish
Glad to hear that.
one Jewish wife is enough.
Yeah, right.
Did you say famous or infamous?
I'm sorry, what, Bob?
Did you say famous or infamous
Infamous. Yeah, okay.
in that sentence? Never
Yeah.
mind.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay,
I said, Rabbi,
No.
I said, let
famous or infamous.
they don't need more than one.
Exactly.
Okay, wait a minute.
Okay,
I
let's
have to switch here.
read Mishnah Sota. So we already know what the term Sota is. Maybe Dan, if you can
That
read.
last paragraph.
Mishnah Sota 1:1.
Okay, with regard to the one who issues a warning to.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear Dan?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
With regard to the one who issues a warning to his wife not to seclude herself with a particular man, so that if he does not heed his warning, she will assume the status of a woman suspected by her husband of having been unfaithful. Rabbi Eliezer says he issues a warning to her based on in the presence of 2 witnesses for the warning to be effective. If the 2 witnesses were not present for the warning, she is not a sota, even if the 2 witnesses saw her seclusion with another man. And the husband gives the bitter water to her to drink based on the testimony of the 1 witness who saw the seclusion, or even based on his own testimony that he himself saw them secluded.
Keep going.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah. Together, as Rabbi Eliezer holds that only the warning requires witnesses, not the seclusion. It's interesting. Rabbi Yehoshua says he both issues a warning to her based on 2 witnesses and gives the bitter water to her to drink based on the testimony of the 2 witnesses.
So what did we learn from this paragraph?
The rules
Gonna
are
reread it.
bendable,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
depending on which rabbi you
So
follow.
Don said the rules are bendable, right?
Yeah.
Bob,
yeah. Okay.
Bob, did you want to?
Would say it doesn't happen very often. And in a way, this is perhaps a little protection that it has to be two witnesses. It's like the story somewhere in the Torah about the evil son.
Yes.
And the restrictions on the penalty are so high that it's never going to happen.
It's in the portion keep that say, I think.
Oh, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
disrespect.
Yeah, yeah,
Never happens.
exactly. So on one hand, you have all these strict rules. Also, remember with regards to Shabbat, someone who is not observing Shabbat also can be punished by stoning.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, we have a lot of like counter rules that protect the offender. And so similarly here, there has to be two witnesses who actually observed her secluding. That's the term.
Well, it's
Cheating. Observe her cheating. But what does it mean secluding? Like, does it actually mean that they catch her in the act of the sexual act?
then she's not secluded.
Right.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
contradiction of terms.
Well,
She's-
secluded means kind of hidden or away from.
Exactly.
Right,
So it's not
right.
necessarily the sexual act, but
They-
just given.
The warning is,
yeah.
they said the witnesses at the warning.
Right.
So, you know,
So we need
why
to
is,
have
why is
two
the husband
witnesses.
so suspicious of what
Because-
his wife's gonna do?
Well, because that's the name of our.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right, jealousy, yeah.
Dan said, why is the husband so suspicious? Because, well, the jealousy, right? The jealousy sometimes, and we know cases of, oh my gosh, I'm searching for the word. I'm sure Elena knows. In abusive relationships, oftentimes, right? The husbands are extremely jealous and suspectful, and anything that woman does, they immediately jump into conclusion, oh, you're wearing short skirt. Why are you wearing a short skirt? That means that you probably want to attract the other guys, right? And not like my
Yeah.
husband today. He looked at me, he's like, oh, nice outfit. I'm wearing a mini skirt today. So
So that,
Tony
Too
is
bad-
definitely not a jealous type.
Keep that in mind.
That's good.
Um,
So Tony has, is secure in his
Yes.
masculinity and his person, but some people are very anxious and insecure, and they don't love themselves, and they don't believe that anybody loves them, and they're easily to suspect. It could be a woman or a man suspect that the spouse has a look outside of the marriage.
I have a friend who is a male friend, who's well, granted he gave years ago some indication, but some reason to suspect, but he's held constantly accountable for every single step. I mean, his wife is texting him and calling him even if he just steps out to grocery store, and so what do you do with that? It's with the anyway,
set her
if
up with
you're-
another guy.
right.
But I think maybe she's insecure.
Absolutely,
She's
Right.
very.
Mm.
absolutely.
Or
If she
mentally ill.
feels, well, if she
Yeah.
feels she has to check on him, all that.
Even if
every
she
day.
has the reason from the past, but
There's
then
certainly
then-
big trust issues there.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly,
That's not a relationship.
That's
right. So why
That's,
stay in it, right?
Right, yeah, that's, well, if
Yeah.
he's okay with
Children.
it. I mean,
That's what you hear.
well, there's, you hear about especially elderly couples that one has Alzheimer's
Mhm.
and cannot allow the other one out of his or her sight because they can't deal with it.
Yeah,
It may have nothing to do with jealousy per se. It's just, it's a mental condition.
right.
And maybe this is something that, I know somebody that's like that too,
Mm.
that is constantly checking up. It's not me. but,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
and I just see it as not at all healthy.
Right. It's not going to make another person to love you. If anything,
And
the
the opposite.
opposite. The opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's smothering and.
Right.
not
Exactly.
healthy and-
So when this guy like here, is suspectful, doesn't mean necessarily that the woman has done anything, or he can. What if that person can bribe someone to testify that supposedly they saw the woman, right?
Mhm.
Like that. If the person really wants to go through uh, anything to do anything to really accuse the wife that he suspects, either rightfully so, or because that person, like Alana said, has a lot of insecurities.
And it's a very flawed law.
Yes.
It's really not a good law.
No.
Mm.
Well, it's not even a law because there's different controversies on how to deal with it.
Yeah. So okay, let's remind ourselves
And
what was the
bribery is breaking
previous
another law
verse?
anyway.
So the previous verse was speak to the wait, hold on. Yeah. Because the straying wife commits a trespass against her husband. And Ilana, can you continue Numbers 5:13?
In that a man has had carnal relations with her, unbeknownst to her husband, and she keeps secret the fact that she has defiled herself without being forced, and there is no witness against her.
So what does it mean that she has defiled herself without being forced?
That means she was consenting. There was a consenting relationship, and she keeps it a secret.
So in other words, if she, God forbid, was raped,
Yeah.
then it's a totally different story. But
Right,
again,
yeah.
then she'll have to prove, she'll have to have witnesses that heard her scream. But that's a whole other law in a different part of the Torah,
Yeah.
which also is not easy to prove.
Blame the victim.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Again,
problems with that.
we're witnessing all this discriminatory towards women laws, which is very upsetting.
Yeah, yeah.
So what did Rasha say on this verse? Ilana.
And it be hid from the eyes of her husband. Since it speaks of the eyes of the husband, it excludes the case of a blind man. Actually, a blind man cannot subject his wife to the ordeal.
How'd you like that? What if you heard?
Not one reason to marry a blind man, right? Concealed from his eyes, it follows, therefore, that if he sees her improper conduct and willfully closes his eyes to it, the water cannot try her. That is, she cannot be subjected to the ordeal.
Right. In other words, to the test by the bitter water.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, maybe it's worth marrying someone who is blind.
Yeah.
Interesting, but like with everything in the Mishnah and then later in the Talmud, it's amazing how rabbis really play out various scenarios. I mean, nothing stays without discussion. Like every single aspect of what if this, what if of that,
So I have a question. So I'm reading this meaning that if he does see something, but he pretends that it doesn't happen, then it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, of
doesn't
course.
exist, and
Yeah.
he can't force her to
Yeah,
drink
it's
the bitter
like
waters and.
right, like
and
in relationship where husband is so in love with the wife that even the wife who known to him cheats, he pretends he doesn't know, and vice versa. By the way, you know how there's an expression that the wife learns the last. Is there such a? I'm translating from Russian. There's an expression in Russian that a wife learns the last, so finds out the last. She's the last person. Or the wife is the last person to find out.
Everyone else.
Yeah.
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 because like, a wife or
protect
husband pretend that it's not happening
They don't
because they
wanna
don't want to,
see-
they don't want to
They don't wanna
face
do
the
it.
fact.
Yeah, they
They
don't,
don't want to know.
Right. So yeah, in that case, of course, if he is not complaining, then
Yeah, but he may have ulterior motives as well.
Oh.
That doesn't come into, that's not
did you
mentioned.
hear
in-
Don? Don said he may have his motives as
he
well.
may have a girlfriend on the side.
It's called open relations.
Right, right.
Yeah.
See, I told you today will be entertaining. Okay. Midrash Tanhuma Buber Naso. It's a very long one. Who wants to read that one?
I guess that could.
Okay, go ahead, Ellen.
Okay.
In that a man has slept with her carnally, except for a minor, since he is not a man.
Ah,
Carnally.
Wait, so
With her.
Wait a minute. Let's read that
Like
again.
that?
In that a man has slept with her carnally, except for a minor, since he is not a man, with her.
So what's the minor?
Carnally.
13-year-old? Under
No, less
13?
than under 13.
Under 13, right? Because 13 is already a
This
man.
reminds me of some school teacher cases.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah,
No,
that's-
but he
yeah,
was
that was a
older.
little older. but, You know, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he was
Except
17,
with a 12-year-old, it doesn't count.
right.
Wow.
You get to a certain point that it wouldn't count anyway. But that, we won't-
Yeah.
Wait, well, how old was Jacob's son? Reuben, was it? Who slept with one of his,
Oh, that's right.
remember?
Yeah, but-
He was grown already, yeah. Yeah, he was already grown.
But so that's a
And-
good question.
And Noah too.
So we
right?
normally consider, I mean, an adult, a man, I presume, well, man, first, of course, woman
that's
is
not-
considered an adult once they're bar and bat mitzvah. Now, bear in mind, except for obviously a couple people, most people in general did not live very long.
Oh, no, they lived really long.
Well, not
look at this.
everybody, you're
But-
talking about,
But
you
actually,
know,
when in the book of
Abraham
Numbers,
and,
don't they, they count adult men like age
20,
20, or something.
20, yeah.
So
Don is
that's-
right. Don is right. The concept of the boy becoming bar mitzvah at 13, actually, and that was my, it was in my thesis in rabbinic school. It's actually in Bamidbar in the census. Count men, I think,
Age
age
20
20
and
and
up,
up.
20 and up
Yeah,
as-
20 and up
to
as
serve
adult.
in the-
Yes.
as
so not bar
guardians.
bat mitzvah age
No.
then.
Well, there
No.
was no bar mitzvah until like the 10th century.
But
or
bar
something.
mitzvah is the ceremony, the whole, it's a custom. It's not
Right. It's not
anywhere in the
anywhere.
Talmud, no.
Right.
So how did it change from 20 to 13 or vice versa?
Puberty.
Yeah, so that the boys, was it, I think also around like 13th, 14th century, something like that.
It was, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it was
around that
hundreds
time.
of years ago, not
Yeah,
thousands.
yeah. That it became tradition that, when the boy reaches puberty. But but in the Torah, the adulthood really counts from the time that the boy, the young man can already go to the army. That's the definition of adult male.
And that's 20?
Yeah, I think so. It's
I'll look. at
it should be in the, it was in my
In Bamidbar,
it was it's in the last week's Torah portion.
right.
Yeah, it's in Bamidbar. That you shall count, also the census of the young men who can already go to the army. Okay, Alan, go ahead, keep going.
There is a story about two sisters who resemble each other. Now, one was married in one city and the other was married in another city. The husband of one wanted to accuse her of infidelity and gave her a drink have her drink the bitter water in Jerusalem. They went to that city where her married sister was. Her sister said to her, "What was your reason for coming here?" She said to her, "My husband wants to have me drink the bitter water." Her sister said to her, "I will go in your place and drink it." She said to her, "Go." She put on her sister's clothes, went in her place, drank the bitter water, and was found clean. When she returned to her sister's house, she joyfully went out to meet her, then embraced and kissed her. As soon as the one kissed the other, she smelled the bitter water and immediately died. in order to fulfill what is stated. Ah. No human has control over the wind to control the wind, nor is there control on the day of death.
How do you like the story? When I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely including that one. So remember, midrash is it's like the free interpretation of the text, you know, in a fairy tale kind of way. This is certainly one of those examples, right? Even to warn women that even if they want to substitute and they send somebody else who is innocent to drink that, you're still not going to be free from the punishment.
Face mask.
Oh,
That's a good one.
It is age 20, by the way. It is age 20.
Oh,
For-
it's 20.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so Dan and I were right. It's age 20. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, you and Aaron shall record them by their groups from age 20 years up. All those in Israel are able to bear
Yeah,
arms.
which was,
So,
by the way,
yeah.
in the sermon, I brought it with, you know, with regards to the young men and those who serve in
So
reserve.
I have a question, because I think we skipped reading that line. This is when her sleeping renders her unfit, and no other sleeping renders her unfit. So that's just regarding the sentence before, saying that if if
men
he
has
was a
slept.
minor, then it really doesn't count. It doesn't make her
Right.
guilty, if that's the
Right.
word.
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
Anyone else wants to comment on this? Pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
not getting away with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip to the next verse. That one is long. And I think you got the email with the link, right? So you can read on your own time this interpretation. Okay, Numbers 5:14. Somebody else who didn't go yet.
Well, I'll read.
Okay.
But a fit of jealousy comes over him and is wrought up about the wife who has defiled herself. Or if a fit of jealousy comes over one and he is wrought up about his wife, although she has not defiled herself.
So remember the previous verse, it said if the husband, you know, closes his eyes and pretends he doesn't see, right? So there's one that actually is blind and there's the one who pretends not to see. But if all of a sudden he becomes jealous, right? So then what happens? And we talked about jealousy already, that then he becomes suspicious, right? And he's about the wife who has defiled herself. Again, even though she might not have.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So what does the foreigner say on it?
You want me to continue?
Yep.
A pure spirit is wanting to reprimand her after he was aware that she had behaved unchastely.
So in other words, first he was pretending that it's not happening, but then he couldn't stand it anymore. And he decided to take actions, right? Okay. And then Rashi, we have two Rashi comments on that.
And the spirit of jealousy come upon him, had come upon him before her seclusion with the man. So even before she did
right.
anything, he's
Right.
already jealous.
Exactly. And again, this goes back to what we discussed previously. Someone who's insecure, or someone has, whatever issues, can accuse a woman even if there is no evidence. Okay. And the second Rashi?
Our rabbi said that is an expression denoting warning, that he warns her, do not be aside privily with that man.
Bob, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I read some commentaries that I think are relatively strange that says this whole thing is a protection for the woman, because if this can prove that the husband's jealousy is not warranted, then he might not be abusive to her for, like, we might go for counseling now. This is a way to resolve that problem. seems to me that that's a little strained.
Right. So, for many rabbis, of course, the text of the Torah is sacred, and that nothing that even if the text is controversial or the characters are controversial, rabbis are trying to find a way to interpret it so that it makes sense. For example, the sacrifice of Isaac, right? I mean, it's a horrible act if you think about it, right? That the father would take a son because he wants to prove his faithfulness to God, whom he'd never seen. He would actually take his son and ready to kill him to sacrifice to God. I mean, it's
Mhm.
really horrible,
Unless you argue it that he had such faith that he would not have to kill his son.
right?
That's the other way.
Or the other interpretation that I often use during high holidays, that God knew that Abraham would withstand the test, and therefore he gave Abraham the test because Abraham would feel good about himself that he was able to overcome this difficult act of killing his own son. Just like, a teacher would give a student a much more difficult test than that he knows student can solve, because then he will feel good about him or herself, versus if the test would be easy, it wouldn't bring such a great satisfaction.
But the other component is that Abraham never argued with God in this case.
Right.
He did. I mean,
Yes, so
Sodom and
he
Gomorrah.
exactly. So he did, yeah.
so that
you're
part of the
absolutely
test he didn't pass.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, he-
Can also simply say that Abraham failed the test.
Right. So anyway, why did I bring it up is to show you how in rabbinic literature, they always try to find ways to smooth the rough edges. Similarly with Jacob and Abraham, like their personalities weren't exactly ones of a tzaddikim, of righteous ones, right? And nevertheless, rabbis continually try to smooth the image of their heroes.
Well, are they
Yeah.
heroes or are they everyday people?
They're
and,
everyday-
and that's really the big lesson of the Torah is
Right.
that, yeah, every human has imperfections,
Correct.
and it's up to us to figure out how to rise above that. And these are set as examples. We can rise above.
Right. Did you hear Don? Did you hear what Don said?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
I have a good sound in my life.
Okay, you can pick the story that teaches a lesson, and in this case, there are many lessons from that story. And
Yeah.
but he said it's certainly one of them.
So
Well-
again, of course, the many parts of the Torah are complicated, and many things that we read are, troublesome even for us, right? And that's why we're trying to see how we can fit it, especially in our modern understanding of life in the Western world, because in some parts of Middle East it may still be the same rules apply. But for us, it's hard to wrap the mind around this type of laws, of course. Okay, we are on Mishnah Sota. Who wants to read Mishnah Sota? Judy,
Do you wanna read?
do you want to?
Yeah, I have to see how my
Okay.
vision is, but.
If you're
No, it's
comfortable.
easier with the paper than on the computer,
mhm.
actually. With regard to one who issues a warning to his wife not to seclude herself with a particular man, so that if she does not heed his warning, she will assume the status of a woman suspected by her husband of having been unfaithful. Rabbi Eliezer says he issues a warning to her based on, in the presence of two witnesses, for the warning to be effective. If two witnesses were not present for the warning, she is not a sota, even if two witnesses saw her seclusion with another man. And if the husband gives the bitter water to her to drink based on the testimony of one witness who saw the seclusion, or even based on his own testimony that he himself saw them secluded together, as Rabbi Eliezer holds that only the warning requires witnesses, not the seclusion. Rabbi
Yoshua.
Yoshua says, we both issued a warning to her based on two witnesses and gives the bitter water to her to drink based on the testimony of two witnesses.
So, so in this case, it says that two witnesses are needed both for issuing the warning and requiring the test by drinking the bitter water. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, right? To actually use to accuse the woman. Okay, Numbers 5:15. So previously we had, and he wrought up about his wife, although she has not defiled herself. And we continue, the man shall bring. As someone, Etta maybe?
Okay, the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring as an offering for her 1/10 of an ephah.
Ephah. Ephah is, it's a measure, ephah
Okay.
barley flour.
Of barley flour. No oil shall be poured upon it, and no frankincense shall be laid on it, for it is a meal offering of jealousy, a meal offering of remembrance which recalls wrongdoing.
Wow, what do you think of that? A meal offering of jealousy.
Who eats the meal?
For the Kohanim.
It sounds almost like a bribe.
The offering is, I mean, who ends up eating all the offerings? The priests.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
So maybe in a way, it's in the priest's interest that they keep bringing those
right.
unfaithful wives, so they can partake from the offerings.
It's like issuing,
Yeah.
It's like
did you
issuing
say?
tickets,
like issuing tickets.
Yeah.
speeding tickets. Yeah. So let's see what Ibn Ezra has to say on it. Etta?
Okay, barley meal. Our rabbi said she acted like a beast to let her bring the food of a beast. A free will meal offering consists of pure wheat flour so that the celebrant will be remembered for good. However, this meal offering recalls a sin if a sin was committed. Hence, it is an inferior offering and consists of barley without oil and without frankincense.
But what is frankincense? I don't know.
I don't know.
A spice?
I think it's a spice.
So in other words, if this meal is made edible for humans, then it's like a regular offering. But in this case, because it's just like a raw barley without any oil, without any spices, it's like the meal for the beasts. It's like, you know, the food for
For an animal, yeah.
animals, right?
Yeah.
So so then the Kohanim probably wouldn't benefit from it really. But you know, I just found this interesting that it says the offering for jealousy. How does it phrase it? Yeah, a meal offering of jealousy. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Offering of jealousy.
Which is the sin, the jealousy or the seclusion,
Exactly.
or both?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I was asking
Exactly.
before about, you know, the meat, because is the husband guilty of being jealous
Right.
for no reason at all? Or is the wife guilty of, you know,
Right.
doing something that
So
is
then,
suspicious?
because it's a man who brings
Mhm.
offering, right?
Mhm.
But
This
he
is like
brings,
harboring the food of a beast. Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
The-
Yeah, Dan is right. It's like aromatic
That's what I
raisins.
thought, yeah.
It's a resin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Thank you.
The man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he's giving this inferior offering. She must have been very embarrassed by something like that,
Right.
whether she was guilty or not guilty.
Oh, Don.
It's 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
There's still more, as you can
Don,
see.
Don, Don.
Do you guys receive the link for this source sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No?
I think it was in.
It
wasn't
was, should have been in the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
check
was
your
in the
emails
email.
that Jen sent
think it was in the
earlier.
e-blast.
The link, the link to the, no, it wasn't in the e-blast. Jen sent an email
Yeah.
earlier
Yeah,
with the link. Let me know if you don't have the link. I'll also leave the hard copy in the office if you want a hard copy. I think it's really a very interesting part that
Mhm.
get to discuss yet
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody have a wonderful day. I hope that next time,
Yeah.
I tell you the truth, I'm considering skipping next week because I realized that it was a lot this week. I will let you know. It's possible that I will cancel, but I may still have the Torah study next week. So stay tuned. If I don't see you next week, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I hope that some of you also will join us in person.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
whatever is your
Thanks.
pleasure. Well, maybe we shouldn't say that if we're reading this.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.